For months now, the Lia Thomas swimming scandal has overshadowed the sport of swimming. I know plenty of people have a wide range of opinions on such an important topic in the sport of swimming, and plenty of you guys have already expressed that in the comments in prior videos. While I do appreciate all of your guys' inputs in the comments down below, I do think that few people have been impacted by this situation as much as Riley Gaines. At the 2022 Women's NCAA Swimming Championships in Atlanta, Georgia, Riley and Lia Thomas tied in the women's 200 freestyle. That's right, they tied. And as you can imagine, everything unfolded from there. Upon tying with Thomas, Riley Gaines was informed by an official that she would be given the 6th place trophy while Thomas would be able to pose with the 5th place trophy on the podium. Obviously, it was just for formalities and the NCAA was going to ship her another trophy later. Going home trophyless from the NCAA meet as she had to return the 6th place trophy, Gaines knew that she needed to make a larger impact on her sport that she so dearly loved. Following the meet, Gaines appeared on plenty of national news media, ranging from Fox News to Outkick the Coverage and plenty more. Needless to say, it's not normal to see a swimmer on Fox News. So when I found out about this, I immediately reached out to Riley and asked if she wanted to share her thoughts on the situation. She reached back out and immediately agreed. So today we have the pleasure of welcoming Riley Gaines to the channel. If you guys want to see more content like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And without further ado, let's get into my interview with Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines is with us today. Thank you, Riley, so much for coming and being on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy the opportunity to share my experience and kind of my opinion behind it.
If you wouldn't mind by starting out, just kind of introducing yourself for everyone who doesn't know already.
Yes. So I'm Riley Gaines. I'm 22. I just recently graduated from the University of Kentucky, where obviously I was on the swim team all 4 years. I'm a 12-time NCAA All-American, a 2-time Olympic trial qualifier. I'm a 5-time SEC champion. I actually hold the SEC record in the 200 butterfly. So I've accumulated a lot of accolades over my 4 years. It makes me sound a little cooler than I really am, but yeah, thank you.
Walk me through what NCAAs was like while you were there. Obviously, I was at the men's NCAAs the week after, and everyone was telling me it was crazy at women's NCAAs. There was way too many media news outlets for what a swim meet should have, and there were just like a lot of people surrounding the meet. I don't know if there was any protests or anything. I'd kind of love if you could just walk me through the NCAA meet.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Obviously, like you said, in swimming, it's not something, we're used to as a ton of national coverage. And so being there, having all those media people there, all the protesters, it was a huge distraction, not to mention, all the talk among the deck. All the girls, were disgruntled by this. There's lots of whispering, lots of chatting, lots of tears, extreme discomfort. And so it was a huge distraction. I think there was like 7 American records or something crazy broken by these amazing female athletes at the meet. Yeah. But no one heard a word of that. So it was like we had all this coverage, but not the coverage we wanted.
Understandably, yeah. And that is kind of really what I talked about in my previous video was, you have incredible swims coming out of this meet. It's probably not the way most of those girls want to go out and how they really wanted to win.
For sure. No, you're exactly right. And that's what, being at that meet, talking to those girls, talking to tons of swimmers across the NCAA, that was a general consensus is that, this is something that has taken away, not something we've just worked all year towards. It's something we've worked our whole lives towards.
Mm-hmm.
We've dedicated ourselves to this sport. We've dedicated ourselves to the NCAA. And so to have the whole perspective shifted and really, the NCAA completely turned their back on us females, it's incredibly disheartening, and it kind of just leaves you mind blown a little bit.
While you were at the meet, prior to actually swimming, was the NCAA or your coaches, what were they telling you if you were approached by media?
I know a lot of schools, including my school, especially for myself, because I knew I would potentially be in a place where Thomas and I would both be in that A final. And so I actually had to go through media training before the meet, which doesn't sit right with me. I don't want anyone to tell me what I have to say and how I have to say it. But, we had to go to media training. We had to, learn, which I don't feel like this is something you should have to teach someone, but they were trying to teach us how to be respectful and how to use the correct pronouns and things like that, which initially didn't sit right with me. But I understand they're coming from a tough place where they don't want any bad light brought to the school. But my philosophy is I'm not going to be told what to say. I'm very much so a leader in that way. And so to have kind of, be in that position where people are trying to do that, it just didn't sit right with me initially from the beginning. And so once we got to the meet, and I realized I was in that A final with Thomas, before we swam that night after prelims, I was getting a ton of media requests. And so obviously I wasn't willing to do those until after finals. And then after finals, I actually responded to the Daily Wire and gave a statement and kind of explained what happened, the tie, especially how the NCAA gave Thomas preferential treatment in regards to kind of the trophy incident, which I can touch on in a second. But once I kind of did that first interview, after that, I had tons of support from UK. And so I think they were being overly cautious on the front end. But since then, my athletic director, my coaches, they support me fully. They were telling me to speak my heart, which I then realized is kind of an anomaly. There are so many other girls who were threatened and intimidated and told they can't speak out or they'll lose their scholarship. They won't get a job in the future. The Ivy League would actually sent an email that said if they felt uncomfortable about changing in a locker room with someone with male parts, then they should seek counseling. And so all of these different infringements upon, your speech and things like that, it's just really crazy. We've gotten to the point where universities are allowed to say those things.
Would you be able to dive in kind of and talk about that trophy incident, that 200 freestyle final? Obviously, you're going into the A final at NCAAs, which means you are one of the top 8 swimmers in the country. That's like mind-boggling in itself, but this is all overshadowed per se by Lia Thomas being in that heat. Talk me through that night.
Yeah. So obviously it's a bit of a defeating feeling before you even swim. But anyways, we swam. I looked up at the board, and before I honestly even looked at what time I went or what place I went, I was so curious, who won, especially after watching Thomas the night before win a national title. And so I looked at the board and I saw Thomas had a 5, which indicated 5th. And I was really surprised. And then I looked at my own name and I saw a 5 by my name as well. And so I kind of look at my teammates for reassurance, like, did we really just tie? And, all their jaws were on the floor, especially considering they knew how I felt about the situation already. And so they were kind of like, oh no, what's about to happen? In swimming, ties are fairly rare, especially in a longer distance like a 200. And so they don't account for that in terms of the trophies. And so we go behind the podium where they're distributing those. And the official says to me, he's like, great swim. We're going to give Thomas the trophy. Yours will come in the mail. You can pose with the 6th place trophy. And so at the time, I'm relatively understanding because I know, they didn't account for a tie. And so I was like, okay, but can I ask you, why you're adamant on Thomas holding the trophy? And he looked at me and said, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. And so I was like, at this point it hit me and I'm like, what are we being chronological about? Because we tied. So can you tell me what we're being chronological about? And he was like, well, we need Thomas to hold it for photo purposes. Yours will come in the mail. Nice job. And so at this point that's when I realized, not only were we forced to compete against men, the biological males here were given the preferential treatment over females. We were completely put on the back burner and sidelined. And that's when it hit me that, no one else is going to speak out about this. Like I said earlier, I'm just not someone who's scared. I'm not scared of this, cancel culture we kind of live in, because to me, it's common sense. And, thinking otherwise is defying that. It's defying science and logic and reason.
Could you talk about what it was like standing up there and, everyone parades out for that A final. When you're standing there next to Thomas, could you talk about the physical stature and like size comparison of what her anatomy was like? Because I know that this is this is what people like to touch on a lot. And a lot of the complaints came from, one, the NCAA didn't do enough around the actual regulations of what it takes to be a scientific female. So I know this is what a lot of people touch on. Could you touch on, one, appearance, and then two, what the NCAA's rules were like leading into that, and then what do you think they should do moving forward, I guess?
So I believe the NCAA's requirement is about 10 nanomoles a liter of testosterone, or however that works. But the average female is 0.8 to 1.2. So even, with 10 nanomoles a liter, it's not even computable to female athletes. It's crazy that they think it's, taking these hormone suppression at a level comparable to females, because even with this hormone suppression, say you are to get your testosterone levels all the way down, there are still certain factors that just can't be changed, like your lung size, which is super important in a sport like swimming, where you have to rely on your aerobic capacity, your heart size, all of these things, they add up. And so I think, obviously, if you look at pictures, you see someone who's 5'6" standing next to someone who's 6'4", 6'3", something like that. That's an obvious advantage, but it's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot more than that. And I think people don't really realize how much goes into it.
This spring, FINA came out and said that they're banning all transgender athletes and creating an open category. What do you think the NCAA's response should be? Should it be that of FINA? Should they follow the governing body? Should they follow USA Swimming? Where does the NCAA move forward? Or do you think the NCAA is just going to say, we're done. We're not going to make any new regulations. We've said what we've said. It's going to be 10 nanomilliliter. Sorry. It's going to be 10 and everyone else is going to have 0.8 to 1.2. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I would have initially said the NCAA will make a change, but after this whole NCAA Woman of the Year kind of shenanigans, and where they actually, accepted the nomination by UPenn of Lia Thomas for Women of the Year, clearly they're idolizing this now, and they're pushing this. And so I'm not sure the NCAA is willing to take any sort of accountability or willing to make any changes. But I honestly think in a sport like swimming, having that open category, I think it's a way to ensure everyone athletic opportunity, which I think is important. I don't want anyone to not have a chance to compete. Sports has given me so much. It's given me friends. It's helped me develop, lifelong skills that I'll continue to use outside of swimming and so many other things. And I don't think anyone should be denied of that, no matter who you are. And so I think that's a way to ensure athletic opportunity. I think it's a way to ensure success at an elite level, and obviously keep the playing fields even. And so I think having that is a fair way to appease, pretty much everyone.
Any part of that experience that you haven't touched on that you want to share, talk about?
There actually is one thing that I feel like should be kind of noted. And it's that there was actually another transgender at the meet who was female converting to male, who went by he, him. So obviously didn't identify as female, but was swimming with the females. And I think this kind of proves the point that the women's category in this sense was kind of a catch-all. And I think that's what the media is not hitting on, is it's not that we're throwing a fit about transgender athletes, because you haven't heard anyone speak out about Isaac, because technically they're a female competing with the females, biologically. And so there's not much argument to be had there, because that's almost in a sense what we're advocating for.
Is there something you would say to all other female athletes who are going to be inevitably competing against transgenders in the future?
Yeah, it's use your voice. That is something that I have, realized through this whole experience, is that you're told that you will be canceled, that you'll be shamed, that you'll never get a job. But since speaking out, it's been the total opposite for me.
I love it. Thank you so much for just sharing your amazing story. That's you answered all my questions and many more. So thank you so much for doing that.
Well, thank you.
There's still plenty of discussion surrounding Lia Thomas and transgender athletes in sports, and this probably won't be resolved for a little while. With FINA, the governing body of swimming, in June ruling to ban transgender athletes and creating an open category, I believe you'll see a lot of other sports governing bodies follow suit. While this wasn't the first transgender athlete competing in sports, and for sure won't be the last, this is the one that got the nation all up in arms. Swimming doesn't get a lot of national media attention, and you guys have shown so much interest in this topic that I knew I needed to make another video on it, and I hope that you guys really enjoyed Riley Gaines. What's next for transgender athletes, and what do you guys think about this situation? Make sure to comment down below. Thanks so much, Riley, for coming again and talking on the channel and sharing your opinion on such a sensitive topic. I know all the audience really appreciated it. As always, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to see all the best clips from my interview with Riley. And until next time, I'll see you guys on the channel.